This week we traveled to the town of Trenton to visit Barneveld and Trenton Falls. The first settlement in the town was established by Garrett Boone, who came from Holland in 1793. The village became known as Olden Barneveld for the Dutch hero who fought for Dutch independence. We pick up a tour guide and take a walking tour of this historic village.
I'm standing in front of the Tanner McIntosh house here on Boone Street. Now, the interesting thing about this house, the rafters are made from old sugar maple troughs. The Dutch who settled here were vehemently opposed to slavery, and they thought that by taking maple products and making maple sugar that they could cut into the profits in the trade down south that relied on slaves. What they didn't realize was that the maple season here was only a couple of weeks long, so they ended up with all kinds of, probably hundreds of troughs that were used to make maple syrup. Being very resourceful, they took the troughs and made them part of the construction of the homes all throughout this village. They became rafters. A great way to spend an afternoon in the autumn is to take a walking tour here in Barneveld. You can pick up one of these tours at the town hall, town offices. An interesting thing that I discovered is the Boone house that I'm standing in front of right now. It was originally across the street on the site of Mappa Hall. Well, they were moving it across to where it is now, but it got stuck in the mud in the road, so that they left it there for a couple of days. Then when it came time to place it where it is now, it was too much work to turn it around. So when you come here, you'll notice that the front of the house is the back, and the back of the house is the front, right? I'm standing in front of the Vanderkemp house on Vanderkemp Avenue. Mr. Vanderkemp came here from Holland, and at the time was considered to be one of the most learned people in the United States. He was credited with originating the plans for the Erie Canal, but I think of far more interest, especially now at Halloween, is the fact that inside this house, all of the upper panels were in the shape of a cross, the reason being to scare away the witches.
I realize it's all a dream. I'm gonna leave this place, yeah. Everybody's sorry for something, some are sorry for more. I guess I fall somewhere in the middle, I just don't know what for.
The Trenton Gorge was carved out over eons by the mighty West Canada Creek, known to the Native Americans as Koyahora, the Leaping Waters. The West Canada drops over 300 feet in a series of spectacular waterfalls and was in its day a more popular tourist destination than Niagara Falls.
Back in the golden era of Trenton Falls, people would come here from all over the country, and people came from all over the world because it really was something like the eighth wonder of the world. When you come here, take a look and in your mind realize and imagine that the water coming down through here went over that entire gorge. It was like Niagara Falls in our backyard. It's amazing to consider that that was all water before it was diverted. It was often used for magazine covers and for photo shoots. Bring your camera here and make yourself a part of this beautiful backdrop.
Well, when they settled the village of Barneveld, they cut paths to the falls, and then they put ladders down so that they could get right down on the creek. And Napoleon's brother came, Joseph, and he was so impressed with the falls that he gave them money to make the trails better and to have the fences, you know, the ladders and things done better. The Reverend John Sherman came to Barneveld to be the minister for the Unitarian Church and fell in love with Trenton Falls, and eventually he and a partner bought 40 acres over here and started naming the falls and built what they called the rural resort where they lived, the Sherman family lived. They had some guests come from New York City, and the man said to them, "Why don't you make a bigger building so that people can stay here overnight?" And Reverend Sherman said, "Did you ever know a minister who had any money?" So they gave him $5,000, and he built what was known as the Rural Resort, which was one corner of the original huge hotel. Well, this was very early. This was 1820 when Reverend Sherman was here, because he died in 1828. So probably his son-in-law came, ran the rural resort for a while, but then more and more people came. So in about the 1850s, he built a huge hotel, which had about 100 rooms, and it was the hotel of the era. People who came from Europe, if they took the northern tour, they came to Trenton Falls. This was the place to come.
One of the notables who came here was William Seward, who was Secretary of State for President Lincoln. And in the hotel right over there, they met with diplomats from European nations and South American nations in an attempt to convince them not to support the Confederacy, all of which led to an earlier end to the war. All that remains of the majestic hotel is this, which is a pedestal upon which there was a telescope. Mr. Moore was a very wealthy gentleman from New York City, and he set the rate for the hotel. It was $6 for 2 nights. You have to remember that back then in the mid-1800s, people were earning only $1 to $2 a week.
See the birds flying south, watch the leaves falling out, down the river no return.
When you come here to see the natural wonders of the falls, take a walk around the trails to also be a part of the history here. I'm standing in front of a little cemetery plot. The Reverend John Sherman is buried here. He was very instrumental back in the days of the development of this area, and he wanted to be buried where he could hear the falls, his falls, for all eternity. The Reverend John Sherman is a direct descendant of Roger Sherman, who was a signer of the Declaration of Independence.
The Trenton Falls Scenic Trail is open for the last time this season, today from 9 to 5. Take Route 12 north past the Mapledale commercial area and then turn right on Route 28 south and then left on Trenton Falls Road.